Well, we've got some more information on the upcoming map Ark Genesis Ascended Part 1, and I am going to share it with you. I woke up this morning to a flurry of messages from members of my community and a link to a very interesting article in Japanese. So if you would like to take a look at it yourself, you absolutely can. There's a lot of information in it, and I'm actually going to break this up into two videos so that it's not terribly long. The first part, this one, is going to be just about Ark Genesis Part 1 and the information that we have regarding that in the Ark maps. The other video is going to be regarding the World Maker or Ark Maker, because that is its own section. It has a lot of information that I want to talk about it. So I'm going to go ahead and break this down for you and show you all the information that we currently have for the upcoming Genesis Ascended map, which is releasing in just about a week now, even though it got delayed to July 2nd. So yeah, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new here, and let's talk about this article. So this article was posted on a Japanese website. It's called 4gamer.net, and I will go ahead and link it in the description of this video for you to check it out for yourself. All you need to do when you go to it is use Google Translate, and that will turn the entire article into English for you, or you can pop it into any other translating app that you want. Now, this interview, I believe, was done at the IGN Live, which happened a few weeks ago. That brought with it a lot of disappointment from, I think, the Ark community, just because we were hoping for some more information. We didn't get it, and then a week later, we got a delay. So let's take a look at this article together and talk about all the stuff that's in it. It's got stuff about Genesis, it's got stuff about Ark Maker, it's got stuff about the upcoming maps that are coming later this year and next year. And yeah, there's a lot of information. So let's dive in. This interview, like I said, it took place, I believe, at IGN Live, and they talk about a bunch of different topics. We're going to just go through the whole interview so that way you have all the information and you don't have to actually go and look it up yourself. So 4Gamer starts out with talking about Genesis Part 1 as a remake from ASE, and the fact that Genesis, according to Jeremy, is completely redone. We'll take a look here. Jeremy says that Ark Genesis Part 1 is not simply a port to current generation consoles. They have completely rebuilt it, both visually and functionally from scratch. All the graphics have been revamped, and much of it has been completely remade from the ground up. It's not just an optimized version of the previous game's data, so you will definitely feel a dramatic improvement in quality. This is very exciting. I'm currently replaying Genesis Part 1 on stream. You can go check out my streams on my channel page. But what you need to know here is that they are really working to remake the map, which is why it's taken so long. This map has taken much longer than any other old ASE map to come to ASA. In fact, it's been over 6 months by the time that we get it, that it will have been since we got another map, because we got Lost Colony, which was a brand new map, in mid to late December of 2025, and it is now going into July 2026. Now, in addition to the visual improvements, they are also bringing in new creatures. He talks about the giant octopus, the paleoctopus, and the fact that it can climb walls vertically and use its tentacles to hold onto objects. It is very interesting because they actually talk about the size of it, and this is something that I've talked about. I thought it was quite big. It was quite similar to the size of an actual ship, and it boasts a size comparable to a brigantine, a medium-sized sailing ship being introduced in this update. So yeah, there's a lot of really interesting information with that there, but yes, the paleoctopus, big, bad, ship-sized. The old version of Genesis was divided into several distinct biomes. Has the map structure itself been changed? So this, we know that the map has changed, but we get a little bit more information here. That's the biggest change in this remake, and the part we're most excited about. The previous map had various biomes such as swamps, volcanoes, snow-capped mountains, and oceans, but the ocean area was relatively small and a little underwhelming. This time, we've greatly expanded the ocean area, making it comparable in size to a full map in itself, with a dramatically increased number of islands and seamless underwater exploration through the entire area. And the biggest technical challenge was introducing real-time physics to the water. So, this part we gotta focus on a little bit. He has not said anything about the other biomes. And I know I've had a couple people in my comments saying there are no other biomes. That would make zero sense to me, especially since we're getting an entire water-based map, Atlantis, next year. It would make no sense to have two water maps and to get rid of the biomes, which many of the creatures in Ark that come with Genesis live in. So although he has not mentioned the other biomes, he also has not said that they're gone. And I think that they are just very much focusing on the ocean biome, and it's just their marketing strategy. And he talks about marketing later on, especially in regards to Ark 2. I think it is just their marketing strategy to try to encourage people to buy the DLC Tides of Fortune. And there's nothing wrong with that. Wildcard's got to pay their bills. But, you know, it is a little bit frustrating from a community member's standpoint when they are just completely glazing over and brushing over, you know, what we're most curious about is how have the other biomes been affected. My guess would be that the biomes themselves, the size has probably not changed. It is just more likely that they're going to be either islands themselves, which it we'll talk about in a second. I actually don't think that they're going to be islands. I think it would be very strange for them to turn them into islands, and it would just be very awkward. They would also have to make the map much bigger in order for that to work, for the comparison of size. I think it's much more likely that we're going to see a Fjordur-style navigation system and teleportation system where the biomes themselves are not on the same level as the ocean. They're on different levels, and we have to teleport to them, and thus freeing up the entire map to be an ocean-size map, or a map-size ocean. One of those two. Now, moving on to the next part. They're talking about the water physics and affecting gameplay. So this is actually really important stuff that we didn't know. Water is no longer going to be just a shader, but a physical entity that will interact with characters and vehicles. So when a storm hits, high waves will be generated, dynamically affecting all water vehicles, including rafts. So this is going to affect rafts as we know it, and the new ships that are coming with the paid DLC. If you take a raft out into rough seas, it will be violently tossed around by the waves and hydrodynamically swept away. This is going to be really interesting to see. It's going to be quite funny. I'm curious to see how this actually plays out. The difficulty of crossing the sea itself and the realism of survival will change dramatically. Eventually, they're going to probably add this water-based physics to other maps, which I kind of assumed that they would do in general. I actually expected them to take this and apply it to other maps. I thought it would be very odd just to add it one time off to Genesis 1, unless it's just a complete flop and it doesn't work very well. And then they probably won't. But yeah, definitely consider most likely that we'll see this in the future. He asks here a little bit more about Bob's Tall Tales, or I should say Bob's True Tales, and the ships that are going to be featured. So in the most recent image that we got, we saw that there were 2 ships. He has now confirmed that there are going to be 3 tiers of sailing ships: the small, fast-handling sloop, the medium-sized brigantine, and the large galleon, which is slower but can carry the most cannons. Now, the number of cannons that can be mounted in combat differs depending on the size of the ship, so we've made some adjustments to each ship's role. So for those of you that have played Atlas, you probably know how the ships worked in Atlas and how damage was taken and all this other stuff, kind of worked with Atlas. These things have changed with the port back into Ark. It's kind of funny how Ark was ported into Atlas and Atlas is now coming back into Ark. It's a full circle moment, whether you like it or whether you hate it. One of the problems with Atlas is that they focus too much on realism and making it difficult to run ships as a solo player or as somebody like not being super active. So operating large ships required a large number of AI crews, which meant players had to keep paying gold coins. And basically they said that this whole system was just really, it was inefficient and it was cumbersome and it made it kind of unfun for people to play sometimes. Not everybody, considered it that way, but, some people didn't really enjoy it that much. There is going to be a new dedicated UI for managing ships when you are operating one. And there's no need to manage a crew. You're going to be able to operate it directly from the UI. That includes firing cannons and all sorts of things. The health system on these is also going to change. Let me see if I can find the section on this. Yes, so this down here. For solo players, crawling around the bottom of the ship trying to find leaks was really difficult, and so they've switched to a HP system. Essentially, when your ship takes damage, your HP is going to drop, and you are going to need to fill a bucket with some necessary materials, probably like wood, thatch, fiber, those kinds of things, in order to fix them. The tension of manually plugging holes in floodwaters was appreciated by some people, but not by a lot. And so that is why they basically changed the system. They have said that they may consider making it a server option in the future, kind of like a hardcore system, but they are going to wait to see what the community's feedback is on the current system of the game. He brings in talking about the axolotl, aka the tide pup, which is a paid DLC creature, and the branching evolution system, which is something kind of new, I think, or I should say that they are working with, and it's an idea, I guess, apparently similar to Pokemon. If you choose to keep the axolotl you acquire as a juvenile, it will remain small enough to sit on the player's shoulder and will provide various useful buffs. However, if you choose to evolve it into an adult, it will no longer be able to sit on your shoulder, but will grow to the size of a dolphin and become rideable and exhibit different unique abilities, specializing in underwater movement. The appeal is that you can extract different levels of customization from a single creature depending on the player's playstyle. So will players who haven't purchased Tides of Fortune not be able to enjoy the new enemies and content that appear in the ocean? Isn't there a concern that it will become a pay-to-win situation? We've carefully balanced that point. Even without purchasing this upgrade, you can still explore the expanded vast ocean area and battle AI enemy fleets that dominate the seas. Okay, so this is big. We are actually going to be fighting fleets of enemies, all right? They are going to, maybe they're ghost ships, maybe they're thralls. This could be a tie-in with Lost Colony, which would be quite interesting. But yes, there are going to be enemies, as well as water fortresses built on islands. Defeating enemies using existing marine life and motorboats equipped with engines will reward you with top quality loot that can only be obtained here. So it looks like it's going to be a mission style system similar to Lost Colony, where you're going to have to raid outposts or fortresses and take on these kinds of things in order to get loot. Large sailing ships and axolotls are merely new options for strategy and are not required to progress through the game or enjoy the map. They are completely optional gameplay upgrades, and you will not suffer any disadvantage if you do not purchase them. It's a vehicle-oriented variation similar to how trains, airships, and battle cars were added in Bob's Tall Tales. Now, staying in tune with what we're talking about, specifically about Genesis 1 in this first part, I want to talk about that here because this is really important. This part here talks more about the ships. So basically, in Lost Colony, they introduced the idea of the skill tree, and that allowed players to unlock abilities through milestones. In Tides of Fortune, they've also prepared a milestone tree specifically for the ships, where ship skills are unlocked by achieving specific goals depending on gameplay. Moreover, once you progress through the tree, the upgrades are automatically applied to all ships that you built first. There's no need to repay the same grinding, and there's new attempts will improve the quality of future titles of Ark. So basically, similar to the milestone tree, what's going to happen is you're going to do things. Maybe you're going to, farm 1,000 wood, or craft a sloop, or tame a tide pup or something like that. And it's going to unlock things that are going to affect your ship and upgrade your ship. Now, this part is really interesting because they haven't really talked about this until now. Will the procedural island system, which was initially rumored to be introduced around the time of Tides of Fortune, be included? And unfortunately, no. Genesis Part 1 is not going to include procedural islands. It wasn't able to reach the quality that they were satisfied with. However, there are going to be approximately 30 islands in the ocean biome. And they have all been manually placed by the developers. This is also a stepping stone in our next plan. In 2027, they are going to be releasing Ark Atlantis, and they are hoping that the procedural island system will be ready when Atlantis comes out. So that is the majority of the information that we have basically on Genesis Part 1. There is a little bit of a sneak peek into Genesis Part 2, which we kind of had an idea about, but we're going to talk about it now, about the future stuff here, because this part is really important. They actually give us a bit of a timeline on some things. Now, here in this interview, basically, the interviewer is talking about Ark 2, and they're talking about vehicles. Now, essentially, the reason that Wildcard has been introducing all of this paid DLC stuff is because they need to pay their bills. And I have said this time and time again, as long as it doesn't become pay to win, it's totally fine in my opinion. And there are people that are very upset about, new content being paid, which makes no sense to me because you're basically getting all of the original stuff from ASE for free. That includes the creatures, the maps, and all that jazz. So when they come in with these paid DLCs, I don't see a problem with it because they are paying their bills, they're keeping the development of Ark going, and they're being able to continue to do and support and grow the game that we all love and that we all play. So we can definitely expect some new paid DLCs in the future. He specifically talks about what is coming with Genesis 2. He talks about that after sailing ships, the next stage we have in store is outer space. So this is Genesis Part 2, and we plan to implement dogfights between spaceships or capital ships, space battleships equipped with massive main cannons. He wants you to focus on the idea that the gravity inside the ship is not going to matter. So once you're inside of the ship, you will be like walking on regular gravity ground or something like that. However, outside of the ship, there will be no gravity because it's going to be in space. This is really, really interesting. And we obviously know about that because when they talk about Genesis Part 2, Bob's True Tales, it's literally called Galaxy Wars. So that is a pretty good idea that, you know, that there's going to be spaceships and fights in space, which is great because I think that the space biome on Genesis 2 was pretty small and really was just used for farming. There wasn't really much done with it. I would say that the space biome in Genesis 1 was definitely much more developed and much more fun to play in. So some really interesting good news for the future of Genesis Part 2. So the other thing that I want to talk about here is that he does mention the other maps that are coming to ASA, Fjordur, A Lost Island, and Crystal Isles. Now, all of these are going to be provided free of charge because they came from ASE. The paid premium elements play an important role in ensuring studios' survival for the next few years. And this is why I say that I don't find it a problem with the paid DLCs because, again, they do have to pay their bills. And in order to do that, they have to make money. And in order to do that, they have to put out content that costs money. They are definitely going to continue making these DLCs. My personal theory is potentially that the Dragontopia is going to be a paid DLC for Crystal Isles. We don't really have too much information on that. I've been told that I was wrong on that when it first came out. I could still be wrong, but to me, it just makes sense that they wouldn't make a brand new map rather than redoing Crystal Isles. And because Crystal Isles is focused on the Crystal Wyverns, the Dragontopia might have something to do with that. We don't really have too much information on Fjordur or Lost Island. Obviously, we know that Nekitis is working on a brand new map, which is super exciting. We always love to see his stuff, but unfortunately, still no information on when those are coming. The rest of this article basically talks about Ark Maker, which I am going to talk about in a completely separate video because I think that that is its own section and has a lot of information, and I don't want to bombard you guys with too much, but they also go in to talk about the Ark animated series. So if that is something you're interested in, you can come take a look at it. There's a lot of information on the Ark animated series here and talking about different aspects of it and what you can expect when the next season comes out, part 2. So if you did enjoy this one, if you found it useful, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new here. We are just about a week away from Genesis Part 1. And yeah, we still have a lot of questions. We still have a lot of questions in regards to how the map is going to look. He hasn't really talked about the parrot. We have just so many questions and so few answers. But I definitely think that this weekend's Community Crunch is going to hopefully give us a lot of teasers and information because we are still missing our big reveal image for the map and so much more. So yeah, I am curious to hear what you guys have to say in the comments or jump into my Discord, which is linked in the description. And let us know. Talk about it. And yeah, hopefully I will see you on the waters and the oceans of Genesis in just about a week.